I'm joined today by Dr. Ben Dworkin from Rowan University. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you so much, Regina. I appreciate it.
Well, we're talking all things budget, and I know you cover a lot more ground than just budget, but I thought it'd be great to have your perspective today about, where you see the budget heading and the legislature versus the governor and the general politics of it. Let me start with, though, I know you've seen that we did put out a report leading into the budget, really trying to translate what seems like policy and Trenton talk into what does it mean for average citizens here in the state. And really it's spawned by analysis that others have done and we concurred with, that the rate of spending that we've got going on in the state really isn't matching the recurring revenues that we've got, and we've got to figure out, do we want to reduce spending or increase revenues? And so it's a pretty sizable number over the next couple of years. $5 billion is the number I think most of us are concurring about in the next 2 years. And what we did was we tried to translate that into what that might mean for income taxes for individuals. And it looks like it would have to go down to the $100,000 or more households would see a tax increase of a couple percent. People talk about sales tax as another opportunity if we don't want to change spending. And rather than going to 7%, we estimate it's going to have to go to 9%, from the current 6.6% today. And then, of course, corporate tax is the one that lots of people have been talking about. Right. And it's not just for the budget, Ben, and so, I want to give you the opportunity to talk also more broadly, but there's also New Jersey Transit has come up in terms of some financial challenges they have. And, of course, tolls on our roads have come up as another kind of pressure point for a lot of the residents. So I know that you don't focus really, primarily on the budget, but what are your thoughts about this balancing? Do we need to rethink the balancing of spending and revenue production, or do you think we're fine the way we're going?
No, I think, of course, we have to. The Constitution of the state of New Jersey requires us to balance the budget, and not just balance it on July 1st when the budget begins, but to keep it balanced throughout the year. So one of the concerns a year ago when the governor came forward with a significant several $1 billion, I think he originally proposed 10, they probably ended up with about 8 billion on paper of a surplus, was that there was fears of a coming recession, which meant that suddenly the revenues as we saw them coming in would dramatically drop. That's the kind of thing we saw back in 2008. In trying to hedge against that, they had this big surplus. And the leaders and the governor were fighting over how big it should be, and do we need it to be that big? Because, hey, everybody's got $1 billion they want to spend someplace else. What we saw was that it was good that we had that kind of cushion here, because things did slow down, and we saw that the revenues are not coming in as everybody might have hoped. So yes, it's obviously, the budget has to be balanced, so these things have to be addressed. And what we begin today with the budget address is really the beginning of a very long dance. This ends up, like most dances, everybody eventually leaves, and there are only a couple people on the floor. And that's what you're going to have here. In the end, it's going to be the Speaker of the Assembly, Craig Coughlin, it's going to be Nick Scutari, the Senate President, and the Governor, Phil Murphy, and they're going to be in a room and they're going to have to cut the deal that the various caucuses will be able to support, the governor is going to be able to sign, and that's the way we're going to move forward. It doesn't mean that groups such as yours certainly can influence and can put items on the agenda and can present facts and figures that people should be thinking about. But how we move forward with the hearings and the budget address and the kind of political positioning that everybody has, that ends up getting to be, in the end, will be a very small room. And that's where those decisions are going to be made. And they have to make the tough decisions because it has to be balanced.
Well, and each year, to your point, is a little, there are similar components, but there's little nuances year to year. So one of the differences this year, and it is, outside of that small group, but I'm wondering, this year there were 37 new legislators sworn in January, and they're new into this whole process. Have you seen and do you perceive any difference they're making in the conversations at all?
I'm not sure how much of an influence they'll have on the budget per se. There's certainly a new enthusiasm. New people are in a position, they're excited. And a lot of them are coming on the Democratic side, which is the majority, and they have their own ideas. Because the legislature, particularly in the assembly, is a majoritarian institution. If you have the majority, the minority doesn't really matter as much. But we'll see these new members. They have any number of ideas. They're interested. They're going to read the bills. They're going to read through it. They're excited to do their job. That is the first dynamic that you're seeing. And also drop the average age of the whole legislature significantly. So you have a new, younger generation of folks, people who came of age in a different time and they were at a different age when Lehman Brothers went under, when the Iraq war happened. You have younger folks in the legislature who don't really remember picking up people at the airport because they've only grown up in a post 9/11 world. And when you think about it, folks like you and me are like, wait, I remember what it was like before then. It's going to be a different approach.
Yeah.
And we don't really know how exactly that approach is going to manifest itself. In terms of the budget, though, again, I think it's going to be very leadership driven. And so you'll have folks who will express their ideas. They're going to want to hear from any number of constituency groups out there. But in the end, this is going to be really driven by the budget chairs in both houses, as well as the top leadership.
I think I understand what you mean about the younger generation, although I don't always understand what they're talking about. But one more, I guess, question about the possible differences this year versus last year. In last year's budget discussions, right, everyone in the legislature, not the governor, but everyone with the legislature was on the ballot. And so I seem to have certainly the impression that affected some of the negotiations. Do you see any differences now? No one in the legislature, nor the governor, is on the ballot. Do you see any difference, though, politically this year? Well,
sure. It's because we have a very unique situation in New Jersey in that the First Lady is now pursuing elected office. We should understand, historically, we have seen spouses of governors run for office, but usually it's when the governor has left, has been killed, died in office, and the wife, generally it's the wife, has taken over. This is different. You have any number of folks who want to support Tammy Murphy, if for no other reason than the fact that her husband is still the governor and it's the most powerful governorship in the country. Constitutionally, the powers we give our governor are bigger than any other state. So that's significant. You have his wife on the ballot, and therefore there's going to still be some strong considerations for not doing anything, at least until after the June primary, that would undermine her electoral efforts. The fact that politics and elections come into play in these things is not new. This is typically a year where you don't see any of it, where everybody's just, we're moving forward. We're not really dealing with those issues. Now, politicians are always worried about the next election, but it wasn't an immediate concern. Here it still remains one, simply because we have this unique situation of who's running for the United States Senate, and one of the top people happens to be the First Lady.
Well, right, and to your point, normally in a gubernatorial second term, this is, when they'll take risks, right, and pursue broader goals than they might otherwise because they aren't worried about the next election because their term is up. And as you say, there's a slightly different dynamic that's going on now.
It is, and we'll see that what has been interesting for me in terms of the budget and general economic policy for Phil Murphy's administration has been a strong commitment to things that are going to come to fruition after he's left office. When you think about the areas where the Murphy administration has really tried to lay down a flag, offshore wind, cannabis, film and television production, these are things where you can see the excitement. You can see things moving. The state has been doing everything to really help these industries take off. But I think the next governor if they do, if they truly become bedrock industries of New Jersey in the future, it's going to be the future governors who are going to benefit from the new jobs in wind and what cannabis can really be like. It's in its infancy. Film and television, the kinds of, as Netflix does take up residence in Monmouth County, as other places take advantage of the studio space that is being built in Hudson and Essex counties. These are the kinds of things. There are thousands of jobs that are at stake. And generally we would say, one should not pick winners and losers. This is not good policy. At the same time, we can see how this can help. And it'll be interesting, this is my point, that it's just going to be interesting because Phil Murphy's going to be out of office by the time, if they take off, he's not going to be the one to enjoy the benefits. And it could be a Republican governor for all that matters,
that's the
moving forward.
Right, well, that's the $5 billion question. Will it be enough, right? When you get to the next governor to be able to balance that budget and be able to keep progressing. So we'll be here to see it though, Ben, and we'll have you back to talk about it.
That's why I got a job.
Thanks for being with me today, Ben.
Thank you, Regina.